Hey, welcome everyone. My name is Ida. I am the co-founder and curator of Catapult Future Fest, a conference in Oslo, Norway, kicking off for the 7th year in May. It's focusing on impact investing, how we can use technology for solving problems in the world, not creating them. And also this layer of us, consciousness. Who are we? Who are we behind the investments that we do, the companies that we are building, our purpose, our passions, and what futures that we see that we want to be part of creating. What kind of intentions do we have today that could maybe support also future generations? There's complexity in the world, to put it like that, these days. And on this topic, wellness or well-being within the space of working with purpose or purpose-driven companies, and how important that is to take care of ourselves while we're building and scaling companies, while we are spending a lot of time on what we are passionate about, so that we continue the work that we do without feeling not well. Maybe it would be the opposite. There's no secret that one of the largest challenges that we have in the world these days is also depression. And then this year we have a more extensive focus on these topics, both in investment thesis that are focusing on flourishing, that is focusing on kindness, that is focusing on investing and supporting founders and portfolio companies in their journey. There is more focus on also, the neurobiology, these things that we could do for ourselves, or it's focused on food, or just like so we can maybe be a little bit ahead of the possible challenges that we meet when we are working hard with our companies and with our teams. So welcome everyone. I see there's more and more people logging on, and please feel free to post a little comment in the chat for that is called everyone, where you're from, maybe something on the topic, and how are you feeling today? Part of this focus on wellness and well-being has also led Catapult Future Fest to team up with the Havn on the west coast of Norway. So I want to let Alexandra Pittman herself present that, because I feel that's more important is your words. And then I think just for the other panelists here today, or the people on the screen, Laura, Anniken, and Louise, let's solve it like this. After Alex has presented, you just pick the baton, or Alex send it forward to someone, and speak a little bit about your work and who you are and why you do what you do. So please, Alexandra.
Yes, wonderful.
Who are you?
Yeah, who am I?
Who are you?
It's a great question. It's a great question. And I'm really happy to be here with everyone today, sharing a bit of my story and a bit of my journey. I've been in the space of impact tracking and methodologies around how you measure really tricky issues like social justice, human rights, climate justice issues Since 2005, so for a very long time. And I've been working with a range of different organizations, from donors to international NGOs, to impact investors, to corporates, to help to address this issue of how you measure these really complex, tricky to measure issues. And it led to the founding of my company Impact Mapper in 2015, which is a software solution to bring in the missing data in our sector, which is qualitative data and text data and narrative and stories, into the impact tracking process. So we can bring in the financial data, of course, already with most software tools, and the quantitative data. But what's really missing is the qualitative. So it's this beautiful all-in-one tool where you can analyze these different data sources in one place and have instant access to data visualizations on your social change process and trajectory. And, and tell the stories that you have about impact more effectively and communicate for a variety of purposes, from increasing budgets and increasing revenues to really communicating the real impact of your work to different stakeholders in your communities and others that are supporting you. So I've been doing this work and then also consulting and advising with a variety of different organizations, from, foundations, UN agencies and nonprofits and corporates and others. And in that process have really been struck by a number of things. And, this issue of social change and social impact is not something that happens overnight. It's not something that is going to happen in a 2 or 3 year trajectory. We're in this for the long haul. We're trying to overturn some really significant inequalities, discriminations, power imbalances, trying to upend, systems in the way that we have been operating and polluting our planet for years, and, actors involved in this that are continuing to deepen these crises that we are facing on many different levels, from the political levels to the environmental levels and social justice levels. When we help organizations, we do a lot of reports to help organizations better understand their scope and their strategies and how to make a difference and how to deploy capital in really effective ways. We're not doing this from a perspective that is holistic, in the sense of looking at who are the change agents that are involved in this process of change, and are we taking care of them? And after doing this work for 15 years or so, I just started to recognize the need to not only focus on how do we mobilize more money for these important causes, how do we get more of the right people in the room to collaborate together and to build movements to create that collective change, but how do we sustain these movements? How do we sustain these activists and these advocates who are responsible for all of this change happening? And that really led me to this concept of the sustainability of impact and the focus on inner wellness. And how do we ensure that we're taking care of ourselves in order to make this bigger impact that we want to see in the world? So for many years, I had this dream of a space, a place that actually brought together this diverse set of people from around the world working on different issues, but brought them together in nature, in a place that was so stunning from a natural landscape point of view, and, just in terms of access to water and forest, that it also transported you in a way and helped you to find that inner balance and find that inner peace, and opened up that creativity and inspiration that is created when you're in this harmonious place that's also giving you such beauty, right? And you're able to see the nature that we're trying to protect, and the humans that we all want to ensure have, equality and rights, and to do that in a space together. And so this dream was to have this retreat center that brings together these ideas of inner wellness with the outer impact. And I searched for probably around 10 years and looked in the US looking for like the spot. And when I moved to Norway in 2017, through Catapult, actually Catapult funded and invested in Impact Mapper. And this was the place. I knew this was the place. It's so stunning, the nature. And for those of you that have been here, you know this very well, right? It's just insane, the natural wonders that exist here. And I found this in just gorgeous place on the fjords. It's not so about 5.5 hours from Oslo, and a very short plane ride, about 40-minute flight from Oslo. That I started building the stream. And last summer we launched. It's called Havn. I can show a video later on, maybe, as we kind of preview some of the things that are happening as next steps. But the focus now has been really building the community and building the events and the types of people that come into the space, because the space is really special. Even in Norway, it's known for a lot of biodiversity in the area. There's amazing plants and flora, fish, some of the most amazing fish and things maybe we don't even know how to identify yet, right outside the doorstep. And so it's the space of exploration and innovation. And we're just really excited to see this launched and to be partnering with Catapult and the Future Fest on this initiative. We can talk more about it later on, but we want to invite you all into this space this spring in a few months as a pre and post engagement and co-creative exploration opportunity. So we'll come back to that. But this is an issue that's very near and dear to my heart. And I've been doing, I'm a researcher. I come at this, from academic and practical perspective. And so I'm really enjoying also looking at the research that exists on how we optimize our inner wellness and how we implement practices in our lives that really help us to be the best versions of ourselves and to open up that space for creativity and innovation that we all have access to. So that's a lot of what this next step is all about, is actually bringing these two worlds of inner wellness and outer impact together in the space. So thank you for having me. And maybe I'm
lovely.
Sorry.
And then also, I just wanted to jump in here before you send it forward, because you are the host of the Zoom channel, and apparently the chat that I've been rallying people to chat in is disabled. So
Yes. Let me try to figure
think-
out how to do that. So I will go and try to do that. And
yeah.
perfect.
And then we will just continue. And thank you so much, because I also wanted to put like a link to Havn as well, but realized that I couldn't do that since nobody could read it. So if you try to solve that, Alex, I don't know, Anniken, you are calling from, I would say, the opposite of the farthest away. I just
Yes.
picked the person farthest
We're
away.
far west.
But but with roots in Norway, that said, right?
Yes, definitely. I was born and bred Norwegian, but I have lived most of my adult life outside Norway, and 5 years in the US. Recently moved to Tuscany though, so I'm kind of finding back to my European roots. I'm here also because I'm passionate about the subject, wellness, inner wellness, and I come from the more corporate or business side of that, having worked with corporate culture and leadership for 2 decades now. I was chief culture officer in Tandberg, which was a Norwegian startup that grew big and was acquired by Cisco. So then I started working with, culture and leadership in big corporate America. And that's when I kind of really got to learn about the stress and the pressure and all that, which I think is much greater actually here in the US than I have experienced in Norway, for example, which is much more focused on work-life balance. And people are kind of expected to leave work around 4 o'clock, and that's okay. If you don't, people will think that it's not healthy. You have like more of that awareness. But in the US, I heard much more comments that, you have to put in the hours. And if you're not in the office until 8 o'clock in the night, you're not really serious about your job and you're not committed. So that kind of started my interest, I think, in kind of like, how do you help corporate? How do you help leaders? How do you help teams to find more when I say work-life balance, it's also about how do you integrate work more naturally in your life. So, and how do you actually feel when you are at work? Because one thing is like some people think you have to like separate the two, but that doesn't really work because, you know, it's all life, and how you feel about your job will, you know, it will influence how you feel about your life, and how the person you come home to your family with is influenced by what you have experienced during the day. So working with leaders and working with corporate culture and working a lot with team dynamics, I really focused on how do you find that well, inner wellness, meaning like how do you find happiness and joy and peace and purpose and like all those emotional things that really impacts you. Because especially if you think about as a leader, if a leader is not in a good place herself or himself, you know, that will really be shown into the organization, and people will feel that. So when we've been working with leaders, it has been a lot about like learning about self-leadership. You know, how can you lead yourself? Because as I say, you can't really be a leader to others unless you can lead yourself. So this has been kind of my journey. So I worked in the corporate world, and then I started my own company about 12 years ago, Corporate Spring. And since then, I've been working with a lot of different companies and a lot of startups, because to your point earlier, Ida, I saw that a lot of startup founders, they come out and they're so passionate and they're so strong in their conviction, and that, you know, that time to take time to rest or to take time to go, you know, a bit within and ask yourself, how am I feeling? That's not necessarily something people prioritize. But when they do, they will have more to give back. So, so when I work with startup founders, it's a lot about helping them see that their role, like in sustaining their business, they have to take care of themselves as much as they have to take care of their business. And I actually wrote a book. I put it here. It's called Fly Butterfly. And it is about a woman, you know, it's very much on point for what we're talking about, because that is about a woman who is in corporate America and is totally stressed out and learned to find this new way of thinking and a new way of living, and how that kind of transcends into the way she works and leads in her company. And lately, and it's funny when you said about retreats in you know, the fjords of Norway. So I also started retreats in Tuscany, which very much is about the same, having, and there's a lot of leaders who come to these wanting to take a week off and just really go more inside and focus on their own purpose, their own values, and check in, you know, am I on the right track? Am I on the right path? Am I making the right choices for myself? Is there other things I want to do? And it's quite enlightening experiences for people, because how often do you take a week off just to focus on yourself and actually feel, you know, ask yourself, how am I feeling? And when I talk to business leaders, I usually say that there's like a F word in business, and the F word in business, that's feelings. So that's something people, you know, don't talk a lot about that, but that's what I want to bring in, much more open discussions in management teams, in organizations, between colleagues that check in with each other. Because by the end of the day, if we're not feeling good, we are not showing up as good as we can in our work either. So anyway, so that's a bit of my background and why I'm passionate about the subject. I'm very excited to hear what you other have to say, and also like would love to have some questions and comments, because one of the maybe the things that I get most is like, yeah, it all makes sense and would love that, but how do I do it? So I think we're going to go into that a little bit later as well. So I'm enjoying this. Thank you.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for those reflections. And again, and I you know, one question is like, how am I feeling? Another one that I have reflected upon lately, it's like, how do I want to feel, right? And then when I decide like what I want to feel, how do I kind of reverse engineer or take steps from there so that I can feel what I want to feel?
Yeah.
So from well, one corporate's can we call corporate dropouts? Is that okay, Louise? You think? From one corporate dropout to another, and all the way to Miami and the beautiful beach in the background there. Would you please share a little bit about who you are, where you come from, and maybe what happiness, what is the key with happiness?
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for creating the space to talk about what I guess is the most important thing for all of us. At least this is what we agreed 12 years ago at the United Nations. All countries decided to pass a resolution celebrating March 20th as International Day of Happiness. It's a right. It's a fundamental right. And sometimes we forget that that's what we live for. So this is why I created the World Happiness Foundation. And now we are thousands of people around the world, basically reminding everybody that that's life. Life is not about work. Life is about being. Life is not about doing anything. Life is about understanding and remembering who we are. And sometimes we forget that that's what life is for. It's not wellness at work, it's wellness in life. So how are we well? That will be the question. And why does it take so much to be well to so many people? And why work is creating so much issues to so many people as well? It's very fulfilling for those who are aligned with their passion and their purpose with the company or with the work, but it's not really fulfilling at all for so many people that are struggling, that get burnout, that they don't feel fulfilled at any level. And we keep struggling because we are living in a system that has decided that basically we are consumers. And because we are consumers, that's the behavior that we have to have. So that's why my book is Happitalism. It's not capitalism, it's Happitalism. So how we create a new paradigm where the ultimate goal is recognized seriously. And if the ultimate goal of humanity and all of us is to be happy, and that's after thousands of research, and actually we can do the experiment here. If we ask anybody, why do you do what you do? You don't need more than 4 or 5 times to get to happiness. So why do you work? Well, because I need money. Why do you need money? Because I want to buy time. Why do you need time? Well, because I want to enjoy my time. Why do you want to enjoy your time? Well, because I want to be happy. Okay, so this is the end game, and if that's the end game, why don't we reframe new paradigms with the end game in mind? And that's how we are trying to get on board institutions, schools, enterprises, companies, impact investors, anybody who actually understands that we are achieving our ultimate higher purpose as humanity when we are happy and we feel well. So basically the World Happiness Foundation is here to create an ecosystem of people, institutions, partners. I just was in a coaching session as part of the Chief Wellbeing Officer program that we run with more than almost 600 Chief Wellbeing Officers around the world at any level of organization. I was just with the head of the food program, the United Nations food program in Malawi. And he is a CFO bringing wellness, happiness, and well-being to the whole UN system. And basically what he was sharing is that the level of stress of the UN staff, United Nations staff, is as high as the soldiers that are fighting in Afghanistan or Ukraine or Israel. So imagine, that's the level of the United Nations staff in countries where they are serving others, and the level of burnout is just crazy. So I think that we are living in a system that is not easy because we decided to focus on framing success by fame, power, and money. So when you frame success by more money, more power, or more fame, that's what you work for. That's what you live for. So you have more money, you are more successful. You have more power, you're more successful. If you have more fame, you're more successful. But this is what we are trying to do with our Chief Wellbeing Officer program, with Happiness Day, with the OECD, with United Nations Network, with so many non-for-profits around the world. There are more than 2 million non-for-profits that are creating change every single day, but people are still getting burnout because the system is not working for most of us. So this is what we are inviting people to reframe success. And the way we invite people to reframe success is by understanding what we really want what we really want is to be free. We want to be free. Free from fear, free from struggle, free from anxiety, free from all this pressure that we all feel. So that's the measure of success, how free I am. The second one is how conscious I am. And consciousness has 3 levels. It's about what's going on. And 85% of people in the world don't know what's going on. It's not like I can intervene and I can do something. I don't really understand what's going on. I don't know what's going on. And then less than 1% know why. And that's the level of consciousness that we want to rise. What's going on and why things are happening. We might be able to witness rain, but we don't know why it's raining. And the third level of consciousness is transcendence, is what for. So what is the reason of rain? What for is raining? What for do we have, what catapult? What for do we have the World Happiness Festival every year? So I think that when we are able to raise this level of consciousness, we are able to redefine the way we measure success. And the third level of success for us is happiness. And happiness is not to be happy, it's to be happiness. It's to embody what we talk about. It's to embody and share it with others. So imagine that we reframe success by freedom, consciousness, and happiness. How are we going to behave at work? What is the type of work that we are going to be creating? Why do we need to work at all? What is the meaning of work? And that's my invitation to everybody. And this is what we do every day and every week with all these Chief Wellbeing Officer programs around the world. That's what we do when we go to nature and we embody nature and we become nature. I think retreats and nature are so important. I was at COP28 a few weeks ago, and basically my point of view in front of all these oil companies and every player that was playing transactional is like, okay, I stopped drilling oil, but I need money because otherwise I cannot stop it. So it was a whole transaction between companies and people and countries. And basically what I said is, well, just keep in mind that climate crisis is the consequence of human anxiety. That's the reason why we have climate crisis, because humanity is anxious. Because when we are anxious, we become greedy. Because when we become greedy, we destroy things and we get angry. And when we get angry and we cannot manage our emotions, we kill other people because we want more power, more fame, and more money. So I think this is so easy. If we were to stop and if we were to go into the antidote of how we reverse what's going on, is through internal and inner wellness, is through inner well-being, is through inner peace. The moment that we are at peace, we change everything around us. We don't have to change anything in the world. So my recommendation is that we go into inner peace, into contemplation, and we stop doing anything. Because the moment we keep doing things from fear, we are not going to be doing the right things. We are going to create more issues. So I would say it's not just impact. It's actually non-impact. It's stop. Stop for a while and stop doing things. So I'm going to stop here and stop talking, but I'm really glad to be here and bring my point of view.
Thank you so much, Luis. Yeah, what is success? it's a big one, right? There is other antidotes, and there is nature, and there is experiences, and there's something that moves us, shakes us, surprises us, makes us curious, or just give us a big bunch of awe. And there's more researchers on this call. Laura, you are researching the experience of awe, and also awe in the sense of how can it lead activism. We've been talking about mentioning crisis and impact, or climate crisis, and so on. And is there something in the awe that can help us? Please tell us a little bit about your work and yourself, Laura.
Is there something in the awe? Well, I'm feeling a bit of awe right now, having listened to the three of you, and Luis, your questions, have spurred a bit of wonder in me at the moment. My name is Laura François. I'm sitting at home in Montreal, Canada at the moment. I'm the co-founder and the director of the Awe Exchange. We're a nonprofit laboratory that's dedicating its focus to building awe-based strategies for systems change. And when I say awe, or when Ida said awe, what I'm talking about is the feeling that you get when you experience a moment that transcends your sense of reality. It's an emotion that is both awesome and awful. So it's not a positive emotion per se. It's not a negative emotion. It kind of sits in between. But it's a moment that's filled with a word that Luis had just brought up, reverence. It's a reverential filled moment. It's a moment filled with wonder. And regardless of where you're from, what your background is, what you believe, how you grew up, there are universal ways that every single person on the planet can experience awe. And that includes music, it includes nature, but it also includes collective effervescence, the feeling you get when you're with a big group of people and you don't know the person next to you, but you feel like you could hug them. There's something about that. So there's so many ways we as humans can experience awe. And it's a very powerful emotion because it can lead to pro-social behavior. It can lead to people doing good things for each other, doing good things for the planet. And that's why I'm honing in on this emotion. We're exploring it in the context of how it can support the building of momentum for systems change, particularly in the climate space where there is a lot of climate anxiety, a lot of fear. It's a space that's ridden with guilt, right? Like we didn't do it right, or we have very little time left. That's typically the narrative. It's one that's filled with a lot of fear. I've spent over 10 years as an impact strategist designing socio-environmental systems, mainly in the garment industry. So these were systems that took into account human and environmental well-being at the same time. So most of that was spent in garment factories that make our clothes. These are prime examples of what it can mean to completely disregard human and environmental rights or to truly honor them. It's kind of one of these places that is either all in or all out. And in my roles over the years, whether it was leading fashion revolution in Malaysia and Singapore or running several startups in that space, it became really clear to me really fast that organizations tend to only make a change when they feel this fear and guilt, but that change only goes so far. It's very short-lived. And we're here to talk about well-being, and I'll be really honest that the time spent in that space and that time spent feeling very much a climate activist completely burnt me out. There's only so much fuel we can put on this feeling of we have little time and we might be too late before we actually stop moving altogether. So this is kind of what sent me down this rabbit hole of exploring and deeply focusing on awe-based activism and awe-based change making. We're now in a period of experimentation. We're experimenting how to connect this research and this exploration on the ground with organizations that have a focus on climate movements. I've always been someone similar to Alexandra when you introduced yourself, someone that's very focused on the data. How do we measure impact? How do we make sure it's working? But I've had to come to a place now where I'm realizing that some of the most important metrics are the metrics we can't measure. And I don't know if I can measure awe. I can't tell any of you, go experience some awe right now. Sit here and feel some awe. That's not how it works. And even if you felt awe in this moment, I wouldn't be able to measure if you did. But I'm realizing that that's not what's important. What's important is trying to figure out how to design with awe as an ingredient, maybe similar to happiness as an ingredient to change making that leads change in a very different way. So I'm really excited to be here and sharing both on a personal front, but also in terms of the work and the research that we're doing at Awe Exchange.
Thank you. I just feel like kind of pausing after all these amazing kind of approaches, angles, and passion and reflections around, I don't know, something that is like inherently beautiful in like we humans. We have this consciousness, we have this opportunity to be in an ecosystem, in a collective, to help each other, to share feelings of awe, happiness, or joy, and so on. And then we have this drive to want to create change. But it is challenging that, as many, like all of you have, tapped into. So I'm wondering, like, what are the like the future challenges? Like, what are the challenges that we see, and but also what opportunities or solutions, and how do we start to really align this inner wellness journey, or maybe on a personal level, but also in a more collective cultural level, with our impact stories, or our impact systems, or the lens that we have. Anyone want to try to jump on that, like aligning the inner wellness with the broader impact perspectives?
You want, I can tell you a story. I was just a few weeks ago in giving a talk at YPO. This is Joint Presence Organizations, and I finished, and one of the CEOs came to me and said, well, thank you so much, Luis, because wow, I'm very clear about happiness and well-being, how to articulate a proposal, strategic proposal. But the most important thing is that now I know why we have a toxic culture in my company. Now I know why people are not happy at work. People are angry. And I said, why is that? And he said, well, it's because of me. It's because of me. Because I'm angry. Because I cannot manage my emotions. Because I have a sense of emptiness inside. Because I lost my energy. Wow.
Wow.
So imagine if that person changes. Imagine if that person changes, if that person finds inner wellness, if that person is aligned with his purpose or her purpose, if that person is engaged with social change, everything around him will change. So I think this is why this is very easy. I mean, we can see this as very complex, but it's the opposite. It's very easy because this is up to each of us to find our inner being, inner peace, inner wellness. And then this is a decentralized job. 8 billion people, and we help 8 billion people to find their inner wellness. And then something that we know as well, that we have to do this in groups if we want to sustain it. We are facing collective trauma. COVID is being universal for all of us. And being exposed to all these news every single day of corruption, of killings, of wars, creates so much cortisol in us. There's a research that shows that 3 minutes of negative news in the morning creates enough cortisol in your body for close to 4 hours. And cortisol is basically the chemical that keep us alert and out of awe, by the way. So actually the antidote is awe. When we get awe, then we segregate oxytocin, dopamine, and endorphins with that contrast cortisol. But I think that would be my reflection. It looks very complex, but it's not. It's very simple. We really need to make people aware that the beginning of change is not outside us, it's inside us. That's the beginning. That's the beginning. That's the embodiment. The more we try to change outside without changing inside, the less it's going to work. The more mess we are going to create. So that's why I see this, I'm so optimistic. That's why what we know at the World Happiness Foundation is that we can reach to 10 billion people by 2050. That's our goal, everybody happy by 2050. Because we are still expecting 2 billion people. 2 billion people are going to be born in Southeast Asia, in Africa, in developing countries, where they are going to be struggling a lot if we keep with this mindset of scarcity, this mindset that we are lacking everything. Even if you look at the SDGs, it's all about lack. When you are in your retreat, Alexandra, is all about abundance. It's all about nature. It's about beauty. So if we go inside, we find our inner being in nature, with awe, and basically in groups, in small groups, we can really change everything that we want. But nothing will change if we don't change ourselves.
It's wonderful what you say, Luis. And I also think that one of the things that I hear a lot and I see is that people, to your point, they go and think that the wellness and the happiness and the joy and the awe is going to come from the outside, but instead it's from inside out. And I also think that a lot of people think like, well, only when I have this, or only when I have achieved that, oh, then I'm going to be so happy. And then I'm going to have peace of mind. And then I'm going to be well. But I think the big human challenge is like, regardless of what kind of situation we find ourselves in, regardless of what kind of challenges there are in our lives or in the world or whatever, that we cultivate the ability to go within and find that inner wellness in spite of things. Because to Luis' point, it needs to start there. And I think most people, everyone want to be happy. Everyone want to feel well, right? But I think very few realize what Luis just said, that it has to start with ourselves. And then you have all that chasing, right? Chasing this, chasing that. And it just makes people unhappy, and it's scarcity and it's fear and it's all those things. So doing it, starting with ourselves, but also I love the story about the leader. I call it the ripple effect of happiness, the ripple effects of wellness, right? When you are in any kind of position that you influence other people, actually we have a greater responsibility as well to take that responsibility as the CEO, or like anyone who go out and talk, because the impact that we as human beings can have on other human beings, I don't think we are aware of that. And you don't have to have a formal role. It's not about that. It's just like the energy that you send out, it will really impact other people. So for me, when we talk about impact, it's all about energy actually, because out of that energy comes great things. So taking responsibility for our own energy, that I think it's a good way to start to achieve what Luis just explained.
This is reminding me. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Alexandra.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think I love this conversation so much. And it's so important to remember how much power we have over our inner wellness, right? Sometimes we are operating in very stressful times, and there's a lot coming at us, but there's a lot of really practical ways that we can take action and actually shift the energy. And it's been some really cool research that's come out the last year around the power of breathing and the power of, I don't know if some of you have seen this term, cyclic sighing, but it's a special type of breath. And these Stanford researchers just did this really cool study where they actually looked at different types of breath work. And this certain type of breath work, which you can do in 5 minutes or less, even 90 seconds, or so, has an impact. But if you do five minutes, they found that this has a really incredible impact on your stress. It reduces stress and anxiety. It starts to engage the parasympathetic nervous system, and it starts to produce more energy and more joy and more peacefulness in your life. And, these sorts of actions that are seemingly small, when you start doing more of them, they start adding up, right? And you start to shift the way that you feel, shift the way that you think, maybe shift some of the hormones that are in play in your body. And we can do that. We can add on other opportunities to go and engage in nature, take a walk in the forest. There's beautiful research also around forest bathing and the power that taking a 1 hour walk, 2 hour walk in nature and just being mindful and present, what that actually does to our health. And it actually has been found to lower blood pressure, right? And strengthen immune system and strengthen mental health. And so we can actually take very concrete actions every day in our lives that are seemingly small, that take maybe 5 minutes or an hour, where we're exercising and engaging, in nature or in something beautiful and experiencing that. And that goes such a long way. One of the other things that we've been talking about that I think we don't think enough about, but maybe how we can embed this power of purpose in our lives more strategically, and think about that, right? There's such a opening that happens when you start to identify and curate and cultivate what it is that you're passionate about, and start laying plans for a dream and leading your life by that. And there's been some really interesting data showing that actually it's protective against really hard things in life that you might experience. And people that have a purpose actually engage in healthier behaviors, more exercise, healthier eating. All of these positive benefits start to accumulate when you have a strong purpose, right? And you can see there's a through line there. And so all of a sudden, all of the stress, it's there, but you're resilient to it. And it's because you're taking these actions, even, seemingly small, towards creating this beautiful and holistic, peaceful place for yourself, which then emanates with others, right? And it just grows when we're sharing the positive vibes, as we all do, right? But this is just some of the ways we can take small steps that are just really get us in this direction that we all want to be moving towards, making greater impact in our lives.
This is reminding me of the Blue Zones. I just watched that last weekend, the new Netflix series, where they talked about people who tend to a garden and how much hope having a garden. I mean, you want to see it through. You want to make sure those seeds come to fruition. There's just something to hope for. So what you just said, Alexandra, really reminds me of that, and just how important it might be to, I don't have a garden, I have a small balcony, but I tend to grow 1 or 2 cherry tomatoes every year, and that's enough for me to feel hopeful. And I cut those cherry tomatoes in half and I share them. That sounded so sad, but it was meant to be very hopeful. The only other comment I want to make is actually, it's something that it's a quote from a conversation I had with Parneet Pal, who's actually going to be speaking in May at the Future Fest. She said, we can't outperform our biology. Like we may want to, but we can't outperform it. And I actually have that on a Post-it in my bathroom now, because I remind myself on a daily basis that it is a big challenge to try to correlate inner wellness and planetary well-being. It can be really hard to put those two together. And at the end of the day, we are only human. We can only do so much. So I'm speaking to maybe the activists in the room, or people who spend day in, day out. You were mentioning, Luis, people who work at the World Health Organization. The desire to create impact, and impact is neutral, by the way, right? Impact is positive and negative at the same time, but the desire to shift something can be a huge purpose, but that can weigh very heavy. And so what is the balance between remembering that we can't outperform our biology, including our well-being? We can't outperform what's happening inside. And this is less a statement and more of a question that I'm often grappling with, is how much is it toxic positivity versus true the true desire to balance planetary and inner wellness, to be able to complete that purpose, to be able to do the hard work, to be able to boots on the ground, get the job done, when there is so much work to do. So in response to the original question, what are the future challenges and opportunities? Like, what do we see in this topic? I think that's one of them that I'm certainly feeling. And I know I'm not alone in this. It's how do I balance that desire for inner wellness when I'm doing planetary well-being work? And it doesn't always seem obvious. So it's always this has been a really interesting conversation for me, and timely as a reminder for myself even.
Yeah, no, I can absolutely relate to that. The timeliness is interesting, because time is just flying, and we are scheduled to end this little webinar on the hours, and I just want to give Alexandra also a little opportunity to say a little bit more about Havn and the collaboration that we have, Catapult Future Fest, and then also that Catapult Future Fest is going to have so much more of these conversations, but also in connection to technology and in connection to investments. So it's this kind of holistic, systemic approach to who are we, what do we want to be, how do we want to design, how do we want to live, how does this inner nature connects with that outer nature, and how do we, I think there's a lot of hope, and there's also, to your story, Luis, that bravery to admit that the problem is me. That is so vulnerable. So and if you speak to that CEO again, please let it know. And like that story, he's one of the bravest people in that room. Really. So, honor him and if you meet him again. On that kind of, I just want to round up and give Alexandra the last kind of couple of minutes. And maybe one comment from each, and we will see each other in May, all of us.
Well, yeah, so we're really excited to be partnering with Catapult Future Fest and bringing attendees, lucky attendees, to global hang events. And so we have a session before on May 25th to 28th, the Future Fest, and then after June 1st and the 4th. And we're going to have yoga and meditation teachers come in every day. We're going on some of the most epic hikes in this region of Norway, jumping on kayaks in the fjord, having these really deep conversations around issues such as inner wellness, and how do we really catalyze the change that we want to make in the world? How do we use each other as resources? So the goal is just to have an opportunity to dig deeper and to get to know each other in a different setting, and one of the most beautiful, inspiring settings. I would say in Norway, you just have this insane double deck situation, looking out at the fjord and the mountains, and can hop right into the fjord, do cold bathing if you're into that. A really special opportunity for all of us to just dig a little deeper and see what transpires, you know. And I think that these opportunities, as we're talking earlier, when you're focusing on an inner balance, you have that open heart and open mind. There's a lot of real innovation and creativity and connection that transpires. And that is what we're excited about, because we do not know the outcomes of these events. And it's just a really special opportunity to be together. And we hope that you will join us if you have the opportunity. And if not, yeah, we'll see you at KFF, and we'll look forward to just diving in some of these conversations in more depth in person there. But feel free to reach out as well if you have any questions and want some more information. I can drop my email in here as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Any last comment, all of you, before we log off and either go to bed or start the day, depending on where we are?
Well, thank you, Ida, for arranging this. This has been, to what Laura said as well, very inspiring to be part of this conversation myself, and I got some ideas that I want to, and I can't wait to meet you in real life, and also to everyone who's been listening. That I hope to see you all in end of May. So thank you for arranging this. It was great.
I was just going to say, don't forget the moments of awe. They're everywhere. Keep your eyes open for them. They're more important than you think. And thank you so much, Ida, and to the team for inviting me. And I really, really, really look forward to May. I'll see you then.
Yeah, thank you so much. And there was a really good question on the Q&A about building the business case for wellness, and I just gave an answer. But this is very important. There is so much research that we can use to get more funding for these activities. I just put the part of the answer on the chat. So very much looking forward to seeing you all in Oslo soon.
Thank you so much, everyone. Welcome to Oslo in May. Thank you for spending this hour with us. And yeah, feel the happiness, the awe, practice the hope, and give yourself a hug. It's possible. Yeah.
Oh.
Okay. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Have a good one. Thank you so much. Ciao.